Hi everybody, it's Mark Pirtle. Thanks for joining us. We are live. We're here today to talk, the title of this video is How to Talk About What Hurts. And I have with me Sylvia Haskvitz, who is a 30-year practitioner of nonviolent communication. And I wanted to bring Sylvia into this conversation because she has made a career out of helping people discuss very difficult things, and talking about death in the family is often super difficult. And for those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Mark Pirtle. I'm a doctor of physical therapy, and I've made a career. I've transitioned from doing physical therapy, and now I work sort of in the health and wellness space as a mind-body practitioner. I teach people how to meditate and be mindful, to see their subtle interior, work with their emotions, and a big part of working with emotions is being able to express them skillfully in dialogue with other people. So let's jump into the topic, if you're all right with that. I went on a run this morning, and I noticed something. So Sylvia and I live very close to each other in Tucson, and there's a park right by our house. It's called Himmel Park, and there's a very large eucalyptus tree that's close to the children's playground. And over the summer, they did some tree trimming, and the trimmers cut off a very large one of the branches of this tree. It was a huge limb. And what I noticed today on my run is like all the growth energy, I'm liking this to emotion inside of people. All that growth energy is still in that tree. And so now it can't go through the limb, which is where it used to go to express itself. The growth energy would continue to grow on that limb. So it can't do that anymore because it lost that limb. And now what it's doing is it's sprouting out all kinds of secondary small branches all over the base. It looks like it's growing a beard all the way up its trunk. And I thought about emotion when I ran by that tree this morning, because if a person bottles up his or her emotion, you still have that energy in you, but you're not expressing it. And so it's going to come out in other ways. And those other ways could be anger. It could be a stress-related illness. So today, what we want to do is we want to offer some insight in how to express deep and painful feelings in a way that gives that relief. So you don't have to, so it doesn't have to express itself in a way that hurts. So Sylvia, all right, a family member dies. How do people in that family talk about that pain in ways that are helpful and don't amplify it?
Mm-hmm. Well, I would say one of the things that's so fascinating to me was Marshall Rosenberg, who's the founder of the work that I do in compassionate or nonviolent communication. His point was that celebration and mourning are best; those needs are best met in community. So how do I bring that sense of what's going on in me to community, but to community that feels comfortable, that I can actually share my truth and be heard and be held by that. And so for me, it's what's going on inside of me, like just to acknowledge that, because I see a lot of people that have eating disorders and they go shopping or they go drinking or they find other ways to deal with hurt, rather than actually just expressing it and getting it out and having witnesses and having connection around what's painful to them. So yeah, anytime that you can just express yourself, how can I just express that and make sure people are open to hearing it? And
the expression verbally in conversation, or do you talk about feelings? Like give the people that are watching an idea of a way to express it to someone else.
Yeah. So when you're at that point of major grief, it's really hard to be connected to what's going on in you. I mean, I think there's so much emotion there. So if I'm a person who is either in the family and not as affected, or somebody, a friend, how could I go to that person and support them to get it out? And I just had this with a close friend of mine whose father just died, you know. Basically, presence is what I would say. You know, how can I be present with you and just say, it's okay. Anything you want to bring to me, I just want to be present to you, so feel free. So just creating that safe environment for somebody to just speak up, to be able to just scream, to cry. I don't think we do grief so well in our culture.
No, we don't. You know, we did that in our movie with our 8 participants. We had a grief ceremony. And it's interesting how once, and this probably sounds like, wow, I could never imagine myself doing that, but we created such a safe container that there were 10 or 12 of us that were in a room, and there was some music playing, and we all just began slowly to touch into the things that have hurt us inside. And we spent an hour or so grieving, and it was like a thunderstorm had gone through afterwards. It was just fresh and clean inside. It felt so good. But I imagine that grief isn't something that you necessarily get over.
No.
You might get over the sadness, but the grief is something that you hold.
I think it's waves, you know,
Yeah.
especially if it's somebody really close.
Yeah.
You know, it's not linear, the process. It's very, and it's so confusing because sometimes you'll go and you'll think you're doing okay, and all of a sudden you'll see something that reminds you. And it'll be just this welling up or this just emotional outburst.
Right.
And so for me, it's all okay. It's all part of the grieving process. There's not a right way to do grief. It's just a way that really supports, like you're saying, getting it out. Like, how can I get it out?
So then it occurs to me to ask the question, so if a person in the family expects you to get over it, that's sort of an unrealistic expectation, because it's like, I thought you were through with that already, and here we are 5 years later, and you're still grieving.
I think my sense is that people want the old you back. And the old you might never come back.
Right.
You might be so touched by what happened that you're forever changed. And I think people really mourn that. The people that are not in the grieving cycle, but they're grieving that loss.
Sure, yeah. That's a loss too. And so loss touches us all in different ways. Yeah, so thanks. Now, what I want to ask is, if anybody is watching, if you'd like to ask a question, please do, because I'll look up occasionally and we can answer. We've talked a little bit about how to unburden yourself of your grief in a community, within a family, or within a group of friends or confidants. Let me ask you this: how do we skillfully talk about grief, excuse me, with children?
That's a really tough one. And right now I think there's more books that are really supportive, but I remember years ago when I was going to tell 2 children that their father had died. You know, what do you do with that? Like, how do you describe it to them? And how do you support them? You know, I use goldfish because that's what I had there. But how do you sort of support them in that journey? And to me, children deal with grief a little differently. They kind of run in and run out. You know, there might be like a moment of grief and then they're out playing again.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a little different. So I would just let them do their process. I would be like a Sherpa, like next to them, just supporting them and what they need, to know that there's availability. Because some of what I've seen in my work is people that have had eating disorders were often, they lost a child, a sibling during and they had nowhere to grieve because the parents were in their own grief. Nobody was there for them. So that was the one way they could control something going on in their life, was the amount of food they were taking in or not. And so I find that, they want some sense of, is there somebody here for me? Is there somebody just to be with me in that? But not to be too much in my space, to just allow me to jump in and jump out of my grief.
So it seems like the answer for the children is very similar to the answer with adults. It's that consistent, non-judgmental presence. And when I say non-judgmental, what I mean is not trying to fix, not trying to, if somebody else's grief process brings up feelings in me, like if I'm holding that space, part of that job of holding the space is managing my own feelings in that moment, which is hard.
It's hard if you don't put yourself on the shelf for that moment. Like,
Yeah.
how do I just stay present to and know this is not me and it's not about me,
Right.
but I'm still connected to you. I'm still with you
Yeah.
in your process.
Yeah.
And knowing that I want to allow you the space to go through it, because sometimes I want to look at myself and say, if I'm hurting you in your process, is it because I want you back? I want the you that I remember back.
Right.
And this is really hard for me.
Right. Exactly. We all have so many different parts of ourselves, and some of those parts are wiser and kinder than others. And so when you're witnessing the grief and holding the space for someone who's grieving, you really have to sit in your wise and kind, in your higher self.
Yeah, and if you're not able to get there, just to acknowledge that, and even say to the person, I know you're wanting support and you'd like it from me, and I'm probably not the best person in the moment, so are you willing to ask somebody else?
Oh, that's beautiful too. See, I love the way, and that's one of the reasons I love talking with you, Sylvia, is there isn't an end to the skillful way in which you can communicate to another person that is very reciprocal in the sense that you're allowing someone else to show up, but you're not denying yourself at the same time. That's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah, because if I'm giving to you but I'm not really present, it's really not going to be a great gift anyway, right?
Yeah. Right. So, Sylvia, you have a friend that wrote a book on grief. Can you say something about that, please?
Yeah, it's actually just out today. And it's all about loss and grief, and it's specifically, but not only, but it's really about stories. She's collected stories of many people that have gone through the loss of one of their children, so a parent losing a child.
Okay.
Really powerful book. There was a whole book launch this weekend, so I heard many of their stories personally, even though I've already read the book. So Loss, Survive, Thrive is the name of the book.
Loss, Survive, Thrive. Okay.
So it's really about, it's not the end, even though it seems like the end if you've lost a child or really somebody close to you, how just horrifying that is.
Yeah.
That there is a way through, and there's also some blessings even in the great loss that you have. So it's stories really about going through all that grief, not circumventing.
And what's your friend's name?
Meryl Beck.
Meryl Beck. Loss, Survive, Thrive by Meryl Beck. And where is the best place to get that? Is it on her website or Amazon?
There is a website and there's a link, actually. Yeah, that would be best. I don't have that off the top.
Okay, so we'll just Google Loss, Survive, Thrive, Meryl Beck, and you'll come up with it. So it just came out today.
It did. So if you want to get it, it would be great to get it in the next, I think, week, because there's also lots of great gifts that you get along with it. I think there's 20 gifts from different people that are offering something.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, that's wonderful. Okay, so I'm so glad that we mentioned that, because it can be a real, and I see that Linda posted the link. So right there, just click. Linda made it easy. Thank you, Linda. All right. And so Sylvia, let's talk about the work that you do very specifically, because I know you work one-on-one with clients. And what are some of the things that you help them with the most?
I'd say across the board, but it could be families in grief. That's one of the pieces. It could be families that are not connecting as well as they'd like. It could be something specific happened in the family. So maybe it could be a tragedy, it could be a change in work status, or something changed big for them, and they just really want to find a new way forward.
And specifically, you teach them how to talk about the incident and their feelings?
I specifically teach them or support them in empathizing. So empathy and speaking their truth with honesty, without blame or shame or criticism.
Ah, lovely.
Yeah. So
Okay.
How do I speak my truth in a way people are most likely to hear? and not focusing on the outcome or focusing on the solution, but focusing on the connection, and through the connection comes solution.
I love that, because it's all about sort of mindfully attuning, and that's something near and dear to my heart. Linda and I are dedicated to teaching people how to mindfully attune, which is sensing into yourself, others, and context with acceptance and care and a wish for a higher good. So it sounds like we're doing some of the same work. Now, how would a person watching this video connect with you?
So they can either email me at siljiraffe@aol.com.
siljiraffe@aol.com.
A couple of websites, I'll give you one. NVC, Nonviolent Communication, nvcarizona.org.
nvcarizona.org. And Linda, if you wouldn't mind, if you could put that up, that would be fantastic too. We'll put up how to get a hold of Sylvia. And if you're interested in learning more about the work that I do, I have a website called Skillfully Aware, skillfullyaware.com, and my email is mark@skillfullyaware.com. So thank you so much, Sylvia, for spending the time to come over today and talk about this really important topic that touches us all, and giving us tools that will enable us not only to sense and process and hold our own feelings of grief, but to work through them in community with others.
Yeah, thank you.
You're sure welcome. All right, everybody, thanks for joining in. And if you like this video, please share it with your friends. Okay, we'll see you next time. Bye.